Pleasant good day to listeners and viewers. Welcome to another episode of Island Vibes, a podcast where we touch on things Caribbean, things island. Today we're going to be looking at Dominica and particularly with something that surfaced this week and was much of a talking point for the entire week and still is, and that is the sort of impasse or debacle between the leader of the UWP, Mr. Thompson Fountain, and one of the executive members of the party, Mr. Lennox Linton. Um, we see on social media there's a lot of chatter, a lot of back and forth, you know, with supporters, giving their views, defending, each individual in their own way, among their arguments. Um, I'm going to try to be as objective as possible on the issue. And initially, I was kind of trying to refrain from making a statement, but in the interest of being objective, I think I need to and share my views. In my opinion, I think both individuals erred and are at fault for their respective statements. Uh, the statement made by Mr. Fountain was unfortunate, and some are suggesting that he was trying to allude to the fact that the process of electing a leader of the UWP is a democratic one. I don't think that was the case, because if you dissect the statement carefully and if you look at some of the words that were used and in the context in which it was said, maybe it was an emotional statement, but if you dissect carefully and contextualize the statement, you will see that he in fact was being critical of the process and not praising the process as being a democratic one. I think he was being critical, and it's unfortunate that as leader of the party, you would be critical of a process, by the way, that you benefited from as when you became leader. You know, and like I said, it was unfortunate, and sometimes, being in a position like that, I know emotions sometimes can get the better of individuals, but as a leader of a party, you don't go making statements, to the detriment of the party, and essentially criticizing the election process of the party or electing a leader within the party. I think that was unfortunate, and a statement that should not have been made. On the flip side of that, the response from Mr. Linton didn't help either, and I think that was totally unwarranted, being a public statement. Though he did say that Mr. Fountain agreed to the statement, I don't think it was one that should have been made publicly, even if he may have been correct in his assessment of what was said by Mr. Fountain. Essentially saying that what Mr. Fountain was saying was untrue, there was no truth to it. And even if he may have been correct, like I said, it was not something that should have been made publicly. There's something I think that should have been addressed within the confines of the executive of the party, and something that should have been dealt with it internally. And like I said, the supporters who engage in this back and forth, making excuses for either individual, they themselves are not helping in the situation. They are in fact just adding more fuel to the fire. And I do hope, in the interest of Dominica, first and foremost, that these individuals can take ownership of their respective statements and acknowledge that both of them erred, and find a way to have some kind of reconciliation on that issue and other issues, because clearly there's more to it than just that. But addressing that, I think they both need to take ownership of their respective statements and acknowledge that both of them were at fault. And in the interest of Dominica, and they serving that interest in having the UWP be an alternative to the incumbent administration, their respective statements doesn't augur well serving that interest. And if they If their interest is about the better of Dominica, I think they need to acknowledge where they both fell short in that instance, and sort of reconcile whatever differences that they have with that issue and other issues, because I also took note of the manner in which Mr. Linton was addressing Mr. Fountain as the leader, almost as if Mr. Fountain was not the leader of the executive that he is a part of and the party that he is a part of. I mean, he almost refers to him like he's an outsider, and I think that too is rather unfortunate, and it's something that shows that there is more to it than just the statement made by Mr. Fountain, that there is something between these two individuals that does not go well for the party and for them being an alternative to the incumbent. And like I said, they need to both acknowledge where they have erred, where they have faulted, take ownership of their respective statements, and find some way to have this resolved. And going forward, working together in the interest of offering their party as an alternative to the incumbent, because that kind of behavior does not go well and doesn't help the interests of the party that they're trying to offer as an alternative to the incumbent. And the supporters who keep out of emotion, making disparaging statements of either individuals or both individuals on either side of the argument, I don't think they're helping either. And we need to learn to be objective and call things as they are. Like I said, the statement made by Mr. Fountain, it wasn't one that was highlighting the democratic process. It was one being critical of the process, and it's something that should not have happened. And the statement of Mr. Linton was rather unfortunate, and the manner in which he himself has addressed Mr. Fountain, it's kind of despicable in my view, and it shows that there's something more to it than just the statement. And this is all I'm going to say on this issue. I'm not going to go further into any details, but I do hope that in the greater interest, that this debacle is something that can be resolved, and it has to start with both men taking ownership of their respective statements. So until next time, I do bid you a pleasant day.